To a question from Senator Hatch.
Well,
Senator from Utah.
yeah, there's a difference between issues where the chair has been overruled than the nuclear option, which changes the rules, which, breaks the rule and changes it. That's a significant difference. And that's what's being done here. By a mere majority vote, the majority wants to change a very, very important rule. And if we go down that road, I've got to tell you, the majority is going to be a very sorry majority in the future because they may be a minority. And I've got to tell you, this body has always protected the rights of the minority, whether it's Democrat or Republican. It's what made it the greatest body in the world. We're about to destroy that for no good reason. If you look at...
Mr. President, I'd be pleased to
Senator from Alabama.
yield to the senator from Utah and look forward to hearing his remarks. He's a man of great expertise in this particular issue.
I thank my colleague. Mr. President.
Senator from Utah.
Let me just say that there are differences in how the rules are interpreted from time to time, and from time to time the chair has been overruled. I've been here when it has. I've only been here 37 years, and I've never seen anything like this in the whole 37 years. And I've got to tell you, this is a dangerous, dangerous thing to do. And I predict that if our colleagues on the other side, all of whom I care for, if they do this, they are going to rue the day that they did it. It's just that simple. And they can say, oh, well, it's just an eensy-teensy little change. It's not. It's a monumental change. And there's going to be a tremendous price paid for it to the detriment of our country. It's just that simple. And certainly to the detriment of the United States Senate, the greatest deliberative body in the world. It's hard for me to understand over two NLRB partisans who the president just recessed appointed, ignoring the rules of the Senate himself. And over Cordray, who probably under any other circumstances would get through easily. But very good reason why he should not go through this way. Well, Mr. President, I would like to put my following remarks in an appropriate place in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise today to speak on what's known as Obamacare and what the Obama administration did last week, hoping the American people weren't paying attention, that impacts huge parts of the President's signature domestic policy achievement as our nation was celebrating the 4th of July. I'm talking about the administration's decision to suspend for a year, conveniently past next year's election, which is very interesting to me, enforcing what's known as the employer mandate, the requirement that businesses offer insurance to their employees or face a penalty. And then a rule issued by the Department of Health and Human Services last Friday stating that it would not verify people's incomes before giving out premium subsidies. My gosh, we've got fraud all over the federal government, and they do something this stupid and undesirable? Well, I'm certainly glad employers got some relief. It's quite a message from the Obama administration. It's quite a message the Obama administration is sending to struggling families and individuals who will get no relief from this monstrosity of a law and its burdensome individual mandate tax. Republicans in Congress believe this is unfair as such. Senator Thune spearheaded a letter to President Obama, which I enthusiastically signed, urging him to permanently delay the whole entire law and treat individuals like he's going to treat businesses. I'm glad that it's been put over for businesses, even though I question why it was put over for this next year. But why not do it for the individuals who are suffering from it? If it's good for the goose, it should be good for the gander. Shouldn't the Obama administration give the same relief to everyone? Furthermore, I might point out that we've always known this law was a budget buster. With the employer mandate delayed, I've joined with a group of Republican committee leaders in the House and Senate asking for the Congressional Budget Office to get us an updated cost estimate of the bill. I can't say what CBO will find, but I have a feeling that Obamacare's price tag will continue to soar, and it's already off the charts. Everybody knows it's an abominable bill. And that includes Democrats as well. Mr. President, what happened last week is just the latest in a series of confirmations that the President's health care law is simply not ready for prime time. And unfortunately, it is the American people who pay the price for the largest expansion of government in generations. They'll pay the price through higher taxes. They'll pay the price through higher health care costs and insurance costs. They'll pay the price with more and more government regulations and debt. They'll pay the price when they are forced onto what are called, quote, exchanges, unquote, that are simply not ready and unlikely to be ready in the near future. This law that was jammed through Congress on a purely partisan vote is simply too big to work. The lesson is that asking government to do this much, what those of us who fought it tooth and nail said at the time would amount to a government takeover of 1/6 of the American economy, will not succeed and cannot succeed. So that's the lesson the Obama administration doesn't seem to get. Doubling down on selling Obamacare that is less popular today than when the president signed it into law. In fact, the White House is rolling out a massive multi-billion-dollar PR campaign using taxpayer dollars to try to convince the American people that it's all the administration promised, shaking down the healthcare industry, professional sport team, and movie stars in the process. When's it going to end? What's the matter with this administration? Can't they just live with the facts and acknowledge that this is a dog? In fact, a cynic might argue that Obamacare was designed to fail in order for the federal government to step in for a true European-style single-payer system that many on the extreme left wanted all along. In other words, socialized medicine with the federal government controlling every aspect of our lives from a medicine standpoint and healthcare standpoint. Now it seems as though every day we learn about more and more problems with Obamacare. So what do we know about it less than 4 months out from the open enrollment in the federal and state health insurance exchanges, which are supposed to occur on October 1st? We've heard from countless experts who say that the exchanges will be rife with issues once they're supposedly up and running. Indeed, those experts have predicted everything from, quote, glitches, unquote, to, quote, consumer horror stories, unquote. 2 GAO reports released in June confirmed that the Obama administration is ill-equipped for the implementation of both the federally facilitated health insurance exchange and the so-called Small Business Health Option Program exchange. I mean, that's GAO, 2 reports saying the administration is ill-equipped to implement those federally facilitated health insurance exchanges. Citing the program's delays and missed deadlines, the GAO concluded that there is potential for, quote, implementation challenges going forward, unquote. But while we've been hearing about the problems with the exchanges for months now, we have not heard an explanation from the administration as to how, despite all these reports, all of this is supposed to be up and running by October 1st. I hope I'm wrong, But I have a feeling that come October, millions of Americans are going to find themselves unable to navigate these waters. Sadly, the problems with the exchanges aren't the only difficulties with Obamacare. Over the last several months, we've heard numerous reports about the problems at the Internal Revenue Service. Let's face it, the IRS has never been beloved. Indeed, millions of Americans loathe and fear the IRS, and the recent scandal surrounding the targeting of conservative groups has not helped the agency's reputation either. At the heart of this recent scandal are claims by the IRS that they were simply unable to manage the increased workload that came with an influx of applications of groups applying for tax-exempt status under 501c4. According to IRS officials, the increase in applications was so massive that examiners had to find new ways to categorize and screen the documents submitted by these groups. That, they say, is the main cause of the targeting scandal. Let's assume these arguments are true for a moment. When all is said and done, the number of applications of groups applying for 501c4 status increased by 1,700 over a 4-year period. The IRS was apparently so flummoxed by an increase of less than 2,000 applications that it had to resort to inappropriate and potentially illegal measures. Give me a break. Mr. President, if this is true, the country is in real trouble. If the IRS cannot manage an increase of 1,700 applications of groups applying for tax-exempt status, how will it handle its significant role in implementing Obamacare and even handling these so-called premium supports? Under the so-called Affordable Care Act, premium subsidies, complex tax credits designed to defray the cost of purchasing health insurance based on household income, will go to an estimated 7 million tax filers, according to the Joint Committee on Taxation. Within 2 years, that number will nearly double. And they can't take care of 1,700 applications or 501c4 that are basically and relatively simple. In other words, the number of premium subsidy applications will jump from 0 to 7 million in just 1 year. Now that's 7 million applications for people across a wide income spectrum claiming subsidies that did not exist before. And only God knows how many of those claims are going to be made fraudulently, since they don't seem to be able to handle them. So basically, the Obama administration would have us believe that while a 4-year increase of 1,700 applications for tax-exempt status was enough to give the agency fits, it's perfectly capable of handling 7 million new filings for a brand new health care entitlement. On top of that, they want us to believe that they can continue processing these subsidies as they double in number over the first 2 years. Needless to say, I'm more than a bit skeptical. Of course, it's difficult to figure out exactly what the Obama administration expects the American people to believe when it comes to the IRS implementing Obamacare. That's because despite all the upcoming deadlines, it's still not clear how the agency plans to fulfill this new responsibility. And despite numerous congressional inquiries, as well as those from GAO and the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration, or TIGTA, no one really knows how the Affordable Care Act office at the IRS is going to work. One of the few things we know for sure is that the person who headed the IRS division that was responsible for targeting conservative organizations now heads the division responsible for implementing Obamacare. How lucky can we be? That's hardly a comforting thought. Make no mistake, processing these complex premium subsidies will not be a walk in the park. These credits are both advanceable and refundable, meaning that they'll be paid out first and verified later. Some have referred to this process as, quote, pay and chase, unquote. Many of my Democrat friends have referred to tax expenditures that they don't like as, quote, spending through the tax code, unquote. That label is usually not accurate, but when we're talking about refundable credits, it's precisely on target. The problem is that over the years, the IRS has struggled to administer these types of tax credits. One needs to look no further than the Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, to see the inherent problems with refundable credits. In a report issued this past April, TIGTA found that 21 to 25% of total EITC payments were improperly given out. Now, if you assume that same percentage of improper payments will apply to the $1 trillion we'll spend on Obamacare premium subsidies, which is fair due to the fact that the IRS has no way of verifying household income, and now the Department of Health and Human Services said it will not even try to verify a person's income, we could be looking at $210 billion to $250 billion in improper payments over the next 10 years. When's it going to end? When are the taxpayers going to get a break? This administration doesn't seem to know how to get us there. Some of that will be the result of fraud. Some of it will simply be due to filing errors. Either way, if the IRS's track record with refundable credits is any indication, we're looking at hundreds of billions of dollars in improper payments when it comes to the Obamacare premium subsidies. And now with the Obama administration abandoning any income verification, we are left with a policy that's a little more than an honor system for hundreds of billions of dollars of premium subsidies. I'll say it again. An honor system at a time when the Finance Committee and the administration is trying to crack down on improper government payments both within the tax system and our federal health programs. Mr. President, if the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, then this is the definition of insanity on steroids. Couple that with the already soaring price tag of the subsidies, and we've got a disaster on our hands. In his fiscal year 2012 budget, President Obama put the cost of the first year of premium subsidies at nearly $16 billion. In his most recent budget, that number soared to nearly $22 billion without any additional explanation. Why are these costs going up? There are a number of possible explanations. For example, there's the fact that due to the cost imposed by Obamacare, more and more employers are opting to drop coverage, pushing more and more people into the exchanges, subsidized by these very same tax credits. At the same time, we know that in order to avoid providing health care benefits, many employers are moving employees into part-time work, which once again pushes more people into receiving premium subsidies in order to purchase health insurance. And of course, there is the looming fact that despite the President's claims that his health care law would reduce the cost of health insurance, the cost of insurance premiums has continued to skyrocket. All of these are potential explanations for why the estimated cost of the premium subsidies has gone up in the President's budget. As such, yesterday, a group of my Senate colleagues and I sent a letter to Secretaries Lew and Sebelius, just yesterday, asking for an in-depth analysis as to how much of a burden the new health insurance exchanges will be on the federal budget given the skyrocketing price tag of these premium subsidies. This is a reasonable question given the magnitude of America's debt. Between the dramatically increasing costs, the daunting task of administering these credits through the tax code, and now the fact that the administration is pulling back anti-fraud requirements, the chances for success are extraordinarily slim. As I said earlier, this law is too big, too cumbersome, too intrusive, and too costly to work. I've never supported it, and for good reasons. What is most disconcerting is that it is the millions of Americans who work hard every day to pay their bills, put food on their tables, and send their children to school who will bear this burden. For their sake, Mr. President, the best solution is a permanent delay of the whole law, not just that for the business sector, but for everybody. That's what we need to do. And we've got to get rid of this pay and chase system that's going on right now. where the government just pays in accordance under the honor code that they've described, and then later have to chase those who have defrauded the government. It's just unbelievable. Well, you know, look at the premium subsidies. These are tax credits in Obamacare designed to defray the costs of purchasing health insurance. These are going to go to some 7 million tax filers and flow to households earning as much as $94,000 a year. How many people who are making much more than that will claim that they're making less than $94,000 a year? Well, if we look at the past, there's going to be a lot of them. And what's the IRS going to be able to do? They won't be able to prove it because they don't have the mechanisms to do it. My gosh. The administration said they're just going to rely on the filer to self-report their income to get access to the credits. Give us a break. My gosh. Like I say, the projected figure for subsidy expenditures has gone from $16 billion to $22 billion in just a couple of years. So, I mean, I just don't, it's mind-boggling that they get away with it. It's mind-boggling that the American people haven't just risen up in rebellion against this stupid bill. And it's mind-boggling to me how my colleagues on the other side continue to defend this monstrosity. Every day you hear of more and more problems with it. Every day you hear of more and more costs. Every day you hear of more and more fraud. Every day you hear of people who don't understand it and can't figure it out in the government. When are we going to grow up and realize that this is a dog and it's hurting America? And I'll be honest with you, I really believe that within a year or two, the president's going to throw his hands in the air and say, this is not working. We have to go to a single-payer system. In other words, socialized medicine, where the government will control all of our lives and will determine who gets health care and who doesn't. I have to say that's where we're headed, and I hope that I'm proven wrong in the future, but I know that I'm going to be proven right. I can just see it. And if it happens, it will have been done by our friends on the other side, who 100% of whom voted for this dog, and who don't seem to recognize that it's eating America alive. I don't understand it. I love my colleagues on the other side. We've been friends for a long time. I've been here 37 years. There are only 2 senators in that 37-year period that I thought had no real reason to be here. I've loved everybody else, some more than others, of course. But the fact of the matter is, what's happening here has happened because of the Democrat side of this floor, and we've got to get some heroes over there to start standing up and saying, we're not going down that road. We're not going to become socialism revisited, even though many of their supporters want that. This is evident to anybody who looks at it. And when is our media going to wake up and realize that this is what's happening to our country and it's wrecking it? Now, on top of that, we have this absolutely idiotic desire on the part of my friends on the other side to change the rules, to break the rule, to change it. Mr. President, I yield the floor.